Section 3, foot control. Your foot is made up of many tiny intrinsic muscles to stabilize. For point work, our intrinsics have to be strong and balanced. If our intrinsic muscles of our feet are not strong and balanced, dancers may develop ankle injuries due to overuse or imbalance, which could also lead to chronic conditions, which we don't want to have at a young age. Here are some exercises and tips in order to figure out how to control your feet and make them strong for point work. So let's talk about weight distribution over the supporting foot. So the first picture on the left you can see is a diagram of the bottom of the foot. When we're standing flat on the floor, the weight should be distributed equally between those 3 white dots. So the first dot is underneath your big toe, the second dot is underneath your 5th toe, and the third dot is underneath the center of your heel. On demi-pointe in the next photo you see the 3 dots lie on the big toe joint, and under the ball of the foot on the second toe. The weight must be equally distributed between these 3 dots. Moving on to the next photo, on demi-pointe, the center of the weight falls between your first and second toe, but we always say second toe. And then on point, the center of the weight falls primarily on the first and slightly second toe. We never want to go towards the pinky toe on point. And when we're on point, the whole box of our shoe should be flat on the ground. Our first exercise is doming. So doming means that we make our arch taller. We do that by trying to simultaneously pull your heel towards your toes and pull your toes towards your heel without moving the toes or the heel. So what happens is the arch will lift up. And as we dome, we don't want our toes to scrunch. So this is a movement of our arch. You can do this sitting or standing. And if you stand up, you can try to challenge yourself by doing it on one leg. And an extra challenge would be to do it without holding on to something. So this is doming. Very important to have that arch support underneath your foot so that the weight is equally distributed through all of the bones and the metatarsals in our feet. Our next exercise is called toe swapping, and this is for coordination and intrinsic control of the feet. Toe swapping. We lift our big toe and then we place our big toe down and then we lift the other 4 toes off. So we alternate back and forth. We lift the big toe, we lift the other 4 toes. This might be difficult at first, but this is very important for your coordination, your control, and your intrinsic foot strength. The next thing we look for is range of motion in plantar flexion or pointing of the ankle. In order to go on point, we obviously need to have a greater range of point in our ankle. So a good way to test this out is what we call the pencil test. So if you have a straight object here and you place it against your leg, when you point your foot, it should go below that straight line. If your foot does not, then point work will be very difficult and painful. You have to have the toe go below where that pencil or line is. So here is another visual example of certain shapes of feet. So on the left we see what is considered a good foot. You can see the instep on the top, the desirable curve, and the arch. In the middle picture is an overly arched foot with a beautiful high instep, but this can be weak on point and prone to rolling. So if you have really pretty flexible feet, you really need to do all of these intrinsic foot exercises for the rest of your life because you have that hypermobility in your ankle. The picture on the right is a straight foot that lacks the desired arch, but if used well is extremely acceptable. People with straight feet don't have the hypermobility weakness issue, and so therefore you can actually do just fine. The next thing we look for is what is called FHL thickening. So what is the FHL? It stands for flexor hallucis longus. The FHL is a tendon that controls the flexion of your big toe, which of course is so important for our point work. Your FHL runs underneath your foot and it comes through a little groove right at this part of your ankle. So we want to find our FHL so it's at the medial part of your ankle, right next to your ankle bone. So if you want to point and flex your toes, if you can feel right where my thumb is, your FHL kind of moving around. When you wiggle your toe, the tendon should feel soft. If this tendon gets tight when you're pointing, it means you're gripping. So we just want to be aware of where our FHL is and keeping it from being too tense. So moving along in the same direction as the FHL, there is something called first toe extension. So that is when we go up onto our releve, right? We use our range of motion here. Now, I want you to sit with your feet out in front of you. And when you pull your toe back like this, there shouldn't be tension. If there is a little bit of tension or restriction, you can massage around the big toe, around the arch, on the side of the foot, and even on the bottom of the foot, and then a little bit on the top. But we want to have a nice range here so that we can go up onto a nice releve, and that really is important for our point work. Next, I want to talk about bunions. So the bunion is this part you can see where my finger is, where the big toe joint gets kind of inflamed or it sticks out, right? So bunions can be non-painful or they can be painful. They can be hereditary or they can happen from just dancing and wearing tight shoes. So before we go on point though, we want to really get our bunions, if we have them, under control or prevent them. There's a great exercise to do this. It is called big toe adduction, which means we move the big toe towards the center. What this exercise does is it strengthens the medial arch and it connects your big toe to the rest of your arch and provides greater foot stability so that the big toe tends to get jammed in like this when you go and point. And so it can weaken that joint because it's not in a straight line anymore. It's, crushed in. So we want to counter that motion that happens on point naturally by doing the opposite movement. So here's what we're going to do. You're going to put your feet together, or actually just like an inch or two apart. I want you to place your 4 fingers on top of your 4 little toes. Your 4 little toes on each foot are not going to move. You're going to bring each big toe towards the center and back. You may not be able to do this at first. That's okay. It's a very difficult exercise in coordination. But you should start to feel as you do this engagement underneath the big toe and underneath your arch. So this is crucial to have as we start going on point so that we don't overuse the wrong muscles. Another thing you can do if you do have bunions already is to wear a toe spacer, and you can put that between your big toe. And they sell them in gel, right? It's this clear gel, and they have various sizes. So, but the exercise to adduct the big toe is probably one of the best, honestly, exercises you can do as a dancer that is going on point. This just really puts everything in the right position, and you're building that strength in your arch, which we really have to go up and down off of point. Doing the big toe adduction 30 times a day will really build up strength in your foot, and it will prevent bunions from being as bad as they could be. So I really recommend that if you are aspiring to go on point, that you start doing this exercise every day, 30 times a day. And if your big toe doesn't move at all at first, that's okay. Just keep trying. Eventually it will. But this is a difficult exercise, but if you can master it, you will save yourself a lot of pain and grief on point. One more thing I would like to mention about our toes is that in releve, we don't want to claw with our toes or grip the floor. We want to let our toes relax and let the ankle go over all the way. So if I claw with my toes, it makes extra tension in the back of the ankle, in the Achilles, which we don't want. It also will inhibit your most range from your ankle. So keep those toes relaxed and flat. Clawing the toes also can mean that you're forcing your turnout from the feet, but again, the turnout always comes from the hip. So there is a very important test called toe to wall. This test determines the amount of dorsiflexion in your ankle, which means the depth of your plie. Very important for our point work. So you want to find a tape measure and you want to place it right against a wall. And our goal is you want to place your toes at the 10 centimeter mark. So 10 centimeters away from the wall. And then from there, can you bend your knee and have it touch the wall? From 10 centimeters away. That's your goal. That's what we recommend for the deepest plie. And so you can start with just 4 fingers length and then touch your knee to the wall if that's easy. Slowly move your foot away from the wall until you get to 10 centimeters. So you should be able to touch that knee to the wall. If for some reason you have restriction, it could be in the front of the ankle, it could be a joint mobility issue, or it could be a tight posterior compartment of the lower leg issue. So you want to figure out what issue you have if it's difficult, and then consult a physical therapist to help you work that out.